lights to get their attention? Oh. Okay, we're restarting. All right, some people are late coming back from the break. I feel like a teacher, Savvy. I feel like a teacher. Okay.
You're too nice.
I'm too nice? All right. So, what I want to do first, before we turn over the podium to Keith, is I want to talk about a couple things. This is the only slide you're going to see on this, but since he's talking about what judges want, you need to know that one of the other avenues for your competitive spirit is the F3C competitions. And it has been going on. You have until August 15th to get some entries into F3C. So if you don't know anything about it, like Ron, you're new, for instance, you don't know anything about it, f3c.org, go there. They have all their rules on there, and it's cool. You are a member because you are a member of the Beaches Photography Club. They do charge you like $10 to enter. What is how? To enter is like $10 to enter if you want to enter. There's no charge to be a member of the group and all that stuff, but to enter the competition, it's $10. We don't charge, okay? Now, this is the important stuff, okay? So, I'm only going to say, so we opened up the ability to submit images on August 3rd, and you get to do it through September 3rd. So you have a month of total time to do it. The thing you need to know is the rules. And so if I want everybody to know that the beachesphotographyclub.com, on that website, once you've logged in, and if you go to a place, I think I have it on here, but you go to where it says member home, it'll tell you the rules for the competition. Okay? Yeah, you do. You have to go to the competitions page, exactly. So what Jerry did to make life a little bit easier for everybody is he created, if you have your phone with you and you get it out, you know how to use QR codes, but if you get it out right now, you can take a picture of that up there, the QR code, click on the little link, and it will take you to a web page that Jerry built that has everything you need to know, well, not everything, it has pretty much everything you need to know about the competition. And on there, it talks about when you can log in, you know, how it has a link to where you can go, you know, submit your images. The one thing you are going to need to do, though, is there's a link on there that goes into detail on, oops, not yet. There's a link, there's a link in there that goes into detail on the rules. So I'm going to get out of this 1 second. Forgive me as I get out of slideshow mode for 1 second.
And once that slide goes away, he dropped off a piece of paper over here that's got the QR code too. So it's over here next to Savvy's business cards.
Yeah, but Jerry, I had you up here somewhere. Okay, so this is what the website looks like that Jerry did. So it says, he's talking to select your top 3, determine the category. And he's got here the categories, but not depth on the categories. Like there are rules on what's considered, like if you wanted to, you know, do a people, you know, if you're a person, there are rules on people. Like if it's up close and the person is the primary thing on the image, that's a people. But if you're doing what the example I think is a football field where there's one quarterback really small over here, that's a picture, that's a color. That's the same kind of example they use at F3C. So there's a lot of information on here, but you don't need a password on this, okay? And you can go in here but Jerry's got links, like upload your photo link. So for instance, I have no internet. No, I do have internet. I am apparently on the internet. Oops, Jerry. I'm glad I'm not the only one having problems today. And anyway, but this is on the website. And what I wanted to show you here is you land on the website, you have to go to this member home, then you go down to where it says competitions. Okay? And that's where the big time rules are. And there are the big time rules. See, and that's what I'm talking about. There are a lot of, all of a sudden I'm losing my voice. There we go. So there are big time rules in here that will give you everything you need to know, like on, what the categories are, what the rules are for the categories. Okay, so enough on that. So I'm going to go back to to the presentation. Okay, good idea. Hang on, please. If you were the competitions thing. So, now, what link, Jerry, do you want me to?
It's probably out on the competition.
For the submission, back to the page.
Go back to the page. You can submit here. That works. Okay. So that's like if I wanted to submit, it would, I could jump. It's gonna it's waking up. This is on Jerry's server, and it knows I'm somewhere in here. Oh, look at this, Jerry. Oh, it is there. Okay. So if I was doing this, I could hit add files and put my images on there.
You need to put your name in where it says your name first.
Yeah, Liz. But since I'm not doing it, I'm not going to do it. Okay. So that gives you a lot of information very fast, and that's why I'm going to go back to the presentation. And again, I'm going to recommend that you take a picture of that QR code. Okay? And he's also, Jerry, you posted that. Hey, Jerry, you posted this as a Facebook event, and then I think we're sending an email out about it too. You did. Fabulous. Okay. So that's that. All right. So enough on the details. Now we have Keith Bartholomew here, and his topic is what judges want. And I thought I would embarrass him just a teeny smidge by talking about, just so you know that you're getting information from a seriously good guy. He is not only good, but he is certified good, So he is a certified professional photographer and even went further than that and became a master photographer. So he does beautiful work, and I just stole these images off your homepage, Keith, and his website is there, KBart Photography, and then that's just a couple of images I stole off your homepage. But that is just to say we are getting good scoop. Okay, Keith, now that is really it on me. I'm going to get out of this and get yours going. Let's see if we can do this. There you are, enter slideshow mode. We did it.
Yay.
Okay, now I'm turning off my mic so we don't hear me talking over here.
Is mine on already?
You're on, your green light lit.
Green light. All right.
Patrick,
Hello. Thanks for having me. So a tad bit more about myself. As a part of my photography journey, when I first picked up a camera, I was taking pictures mostly of my daughter playing basketball. And I just fell in love with photography and taking pictures. And, I started hearing this term of, just a guy with a camera, everybody's a photographer, all you have to do is buy a camera. And I thought to myself, well, I really need to be serious about this. And so that's when I joined PPA, and I went through and I got my certification, my professional photographer certification. I felt like that was important to me. And the other thing I was doing was entering their photography competitions. And the competitions really were brutal at first because you get a lot of feedback on your images about what's wrong with them. And you have to have sort of thick skin and work through it and understand that nobody's really there to put you down or put your images down. They're there to really help you improve. And through that process, I was able to really understand better what it takes to make a really nice image. And so that's really helped me, and I would encourage everybody to participate in competitions and continue to participate in competitions, and it will help you get better with your images. And hopefully I will be able to give you a few tips today on some of the finer details of what you can do to help improve your images. Now, I don't have any images in here that I'm really going to critique or anything like that. It's really just a presentation around the things that judges find in images that they look for when they're judging. PPA has a 12 point system for what they evaluate images on. I cut out a couple of the points that I just didn't feel like were all that easy to explain or useful, and I whittled it down to 10. That's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. So if you take nothing else away from my presentation today, please take away the idea that really great images are not just captured, they're created. And that means both, with the thought process of, when I push the button on that camera, do I have all the settings that I want? Have I composed the frame the way I want? Have I done everything to make the image that I want to generate? Or did I just click a button and then try to, put up what I call a snapshot image? So really great images are created with thought and detailed. In some cases, it's work after the fact. In some cases, it's a lot of patience up front, waiting for the right moment, waiting for the right lighting. But really great images are created with intention, okay? So to understand winning images, we have to understand it's a lot beyond just technical skill. You could take a really great technical image and still not really push all of the judges' buttons. You have to understand when judges look at images, these things come flying across the screen, it pops up in front of them, and they have a minute maybe to, or it's actually probably less than a minute before they get an impression of that image. So these are really fast things that come through, and you really have to do something to stand out with the judges. So we're going to explore all of these 10 items in detail, and we'll talk about each one. I think the most important one is impact, emotional connection. When I'm editing my images and I think I have decent images, I usually will call my wife to come look. And if I show her an image, and my wife's not a photographer, she's not an artist, nothing like that. If I show her an image and she goes, "That's nice," I say, "Oh, it's not a competition image." If I show her an image and she goes, "Wow," now I know I got something to work with, right? And so it's really that wow factor, that impact. And I think, like I said, these images come, judges will look, especially in PPA. I don't know how many images they look at, hundreds probably every day when they're doing these judgings. And they come and you have to impact the judge with that, right? And this impact is much more than technical skill. You're not going to impact a judge with just a highly technically perfect image. It has to be something else. It has to be something that connects with the viewer, right? You think about all the great artworks and all of that. It has to be something that people say, "Wow, that's really neat." So impact to me is one of the most important. The next most important is really technical excellence. And this means you can't goof up the technical parts, even if you have a great image, a high impact image. But if you goof up the highlights, if the exposure's not perfect, if you have blown out highlights, if you've lost detail on the highlights, you've lost detail on the blacks, if the image isn't sharp and in focus, at least the subject part of the image has to be in focus. The white balance, if you don't have it cropped, one of my huge pet peeves on images is an unlevel horizon. And so if you have an unlevel horizon in a competition image, unless it's really unlevel for a really important reason, that's an artistic reason that works for that particular image, you're probably not going to do well with it. If it's just, a beach shot and the horizon's a little bit off, judge will kill it. So once you've got impact, you have to make sure that you have technical excellence. So these two are absolute must-haves when you're doing your images. By the way, stop me if you have any questions throughout the presentation, okay? Technical excellence also is the post-processing. Today we have, if you shoot in RAW, God forbid you don't shoot in RAW and you shoot in JPEG, you go into Lightroom and you have all these sliders. You could, bring down the highlights and push up the shadows and all this. And you can do this to the point where you start getting halos, especially around images taken at night and things like that. So you really can mess up a good image if you try to over-process it. So make sure that you have the appropriate noise control, that you don't have too much grain and things like that. And make sure you also use a calibrated monitor. I know a lot of people don't calibrate their monitor all that often, and I don't think you have to calibrate all that often, but if you've never calibrated your monitor, you probably should, because you just don't know if you are creating a calibration or creating images that are on a monitor that's too bright, in which case your images aren't going to look good on another monitor. So when judges are looking at your images, there's a specific setting that they're using on their monitors, and they have calibrated monitors to a specific set of settings. So, and this also goes if you ever want to print any of your images, you need to make sure that your monitor is calibrated. So it's a really important thing. The next one is creativity, and this is really where it kind of goes with impact to some extent. It's where you can take and do something unexpected. There's so many scenes and so many images that we all have seen so many times, but if you can find a different way to take the image, a different way to process the image, challenge the original conventions out there. Street photography is really good for this, where you try to come up with interesting angles, shoot really low, shoot really high. These are things that, you really try to do something that the judge kind of goes, hey, that's really unique and interesting. I haven't seen that before. The judges see so many things. One thing that kind of drives me nuts in competition is our waterfalls. I love waterfalls. I absolutely love shooting waterfalls. I love processing them. I have one on my wall at home. They don't do well in competition because judges see so many of them because everybody loves them. So they're just not a really great competition thing. So it's just one of those things. So they're not that creative unless you could shoot a waterfall in maybe some very different way. I don't know. But creativity, is something that the judges are really going to look at. Composition is another really important thing. So there's, I have a short presentation or short video at the end of this that talks a little bit, actually quite a bit about composition. But a couple things about composition. When I've critiqued people's images before, I will ask them sometimes, what is the subject of this image? So a lot of times, I don't believe you guys require titles for your images. Is that, you do require titles? Okay, great. So requiring titles is a fantastic thing. I didn't talk about titles in here at all, but you kind of have to know what your subject is to be able to create a good title for it, right? Your title should be something, and this is not about composition, but your title should be something that evokes an emotion. And we'll talk a little bit about storytelling in a minute. But to get a good subject, or to get a good title, you need to know what your subject is. Oftentimes people think, wow, that's a really pretty image, but really what's the subject of that image? You have to understand that. And then you have to understand, where is the subject in the frame? Is it at one of the thirds? I assume everybody knows about the rule of thirds. If you cut the image up in thirds, horizontally and vertically, if you want to put your points of interest on one of those corners, it's really good. There's also the Fibonacci lines and other things like that that people use for composition tools. But those things, how and where your subject is located in your frame is really important. And knowing what the subject is, it helps really guide the viewer's eye through the image. Are there any questions about that? Okay. Color harmony. So early on, when I was doing photography, I had a friend of mine's daughter over, and I did this portrait of her, and she had her hands on her face like this. She was a young girl, and I thought it was just beautifully lit. She was a beautiful little girl, and she was wearing a brown sweater, and she had white cufflinks on, and the whole portrait was done in basically a low-key type picture. And the judge, as soon as it popped up, the judge said, color harmony's off with the white cufflinks, distracting. Threw it out. It didn't even merit. It was a beautiful image, but the white cufflinks just totally threw off the color harmony. And so if you look at this image, for instance, if there was a purple picture on the wall, it would just look off, right? It would just look terrible. So color harmonies, to me, are really hard thing to make sure that you get right. But if you don't have it, if there's something that you can remove from the image to where it has better color harmony, is easier to look at, it's less distracting, more pleasing. A lot of times this is really important with portraits. If you look at some of the really good portraits, there's a whole color palette associated with the portrait. And that's what really the judges tend to like better. Questions on that? The center of interest. Again, this goes back to the subject, but it also goes back to the first look. Yes, sir. Bill.
That last one.
Yes, sir.
That dividing line, is that indicating something about?
It's just kind of different color harmony on each side of the line.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So center of interest or the visual anchor. So one of the things that you want to think about, and I've got a brief exercise at the end of this, is if you were to take your picture, whatever picture you're entering in competition, and pull it up in front of your face, where does your eye go first? Where is my eye drawn, right? It's going to be drawn to a person's eyes. It's going to be drawn to the brightest thing. It's going to be drawn to the highest contrast. It will be drawn to, if you can actually look this up on the internet, there's a whole hierarchy of what draws attention more than something else in images. But it's really important to know where your eyes go and then how they move around that frame. A good image is something that you know where your eyes are going to anchor first, and then there's somewhere to go around the frame. Okay? One trick you can do with your image is turn it upside down and look at it again and see where your eye goes. Because when you turn it upside down, you don't have the same visual perspective. Oftentimes, it's going to be the brightest thing. So if you have something that's overly bright in your image, brighter than whatever your subject is, you kind of want to tone that down as much as possible. You don't want your eyes going to things that you don't want the viewer's eyes going to something that is not the subject. Does it make sense? Okay. All right. Lighting. Yes.
Just talk about her, because I see the flow.
Sure.
As you're describing center of interest. And I go from her left eye to the right to the flowers.
Yeah, you see your eye just keeps moving around the image, right?
Just lovely.
Yeah. And that's the whole point, right? Is that you want the viewer's eye to stay in your image as long as possible, right? You want to create these little traps of where their eye goes around the image. Lighting. So lighting is the photographer's paintbrush, really. So we talked earlier about how to do harsh lighting, right? And it's difficult. So you want to look at direction, quality, and color temperature. And these things oftentimes, if you're in a studio, you have to be able to create them with the flashes properly. And if you are outside, you have to be able to position the subject in such a way that the light is pleasing, or wait for the light to be right. If you're not shooting people and you're shooting landscapes, you typically don't go out in the middle of the day. You wait till the evenings, or you go out early in the mornings, you try to find when the light's nice. And so that's, part of what it takes to make a really great image. The difference between a great image and a good image is, did you wait for the light to be perfect? And oftentimes that's time consuming and difficult, and sometimes it just doesn't happen. I was in Iceland, and there was this really interesting waterfalls, that you could actually get behind and shoot through this waterfall. And if you could wait and for the sun to set, it would set on a certain time. It would set right in front of this waterfall, and you shoot through this waterfall for the sunset. But on that particular day, I couldn't wait. So I took the best image I could, but I knew it wasn't a great image because it wasn't as good as an image you could get if you had waited a couple hours there. So yeah, light is really important, and this is something that the judges are going to look for. How pleasing is the light? Do you have hot spots? Do you have dappled light? Subject matter. So you have to understand what is the story that you're trying to tell. What do you want the viewer to take away from your image? And if you know what your subject is, and you know how your eyes are moving around the frame, then you need to figure out what is distracting in that image. This image, I don't think there's any distractions. But if there was some other bird in a corner of this image or something weird in the background, that would be the kind of thing that you would want to remove from the image. You want the image to be as simple and as clean as possible so that the viewer knows exactly what the subject is and exactly what story you're trying to tell. If you can choose subjects that evoke some sort of emotion, that is the best. And if you can get a title that helps reinforce the emotion of that, that's also the best. So a few years ago, one of the local photographers, Michelle Schaefer, won an image. I'm trying to remember what the title of the image was. Leslie might remember. Heart of a Fighter. It was, she made this beautiful image of this little baby who had had open heart surgery. So it had a big scar down its chest, and she posed it on 2 boxing gloves and called it Heart of a Fighter. Fantastic. The impact, the storytelling. And she beautifully shot it. So that's the kind of thing that, when judges see that. Now, I'll be honest with you, when you first look at it, you don't see the scar so much. But when you heard the title, Heart of the Fighter, and you saw the scar, it all came together. So it was a very powerful image. The other thing you have to consider is, if you have the perfect subject matter, did your technique for capturing it capture it perfectly? So for instance, if you're trying to capture a bird in flight, was your shutter speed fast enough so that the bird's sharp? In this case, you've got a little waterfall. You probably want that water to have a little bit of a blur, a little bit of motion associated with it. So did you get your shutter speed right for that? Did you get your aperture right so that you have enough depth of field in your image? So these are the things that come back to a little bit more than technical, but more technique-wise. Did you get the technique to perfectly capture that particular subject in that particular environment? Storytelling. Again, this is where your title's going to really help. You don't want to have a title that says sunset on a lake. Does nothing to help your image. Small bird on a limb. The judge can see it's a small bird on a limb, right? You don't need a simple title like that, right? I always tried to generate titles that created some sort of emotional basis with them. There are things called random title generators. You can go on to Google and just type in random title generator. There's a bunch of them out there, and it will generate these random titles for you. Now, it might not generate the random title that is perfect for your image, but what I find is all you have to do is click next, 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 and it'll continue to generate these random titles. And it's almost like a brainstorming exercise. And as you see these titles come across, it will sort of free up your mind. And as you think about your image and these titles coming across, it will help you actually generate interesting titles for your images. I promise you, trust it. So with storytelling, it's really, where the rubber meets the road, right? If you have all the other elements together and you can tell a really good story with your image, that's where, the judges are going to really love your images, right? It has to tell some sort of story, some sort of emotion, context, the right moment, One of those things that's really gonna pull together. So, in summary, again, we want impact to get the judge's attention. We must have technical excellence, right? The judges are not going to let a crooked horizon or blown out highlights or lost details in the darks. Those things are just not going to pass. Try something creative, something new, something different, something that somebody goes, oh wow, that's really different. Never seen that type of image shot that way before. Make sure your composition holds your subject's attention. Make sure their eye sort of moves through the image. Make sure you have a foreground, a midground, and a background. Make sure you have no distracting colors, some sort of color harmony. Center of interest. Think about where your eyes go in the image. Be intentional about your lighting. Make sure that it helps support your story. Know what your subject is and know how you have them framed. Understand the different concepts associated with framing, rule of thirds, Fibonacci sequences and such. And then make sure that you execute properly relative to what you're trying to achieve. And finally, storytelling. If you can get an image that tells a story along with your title, you're going to be way ahead on competitions. All right, so the next slide has an image on it. Can we turn all the lights down, please? So the next slide has an image on it, and then there is a link that I want to show you a short video. It's not my video, it's somebody else's, and I'll talk about it in a second. When I flash this slide up, I want you to pay very close attention to where your eye goes first, to where it goes second, to where it goes third. Okay? So, did your eye go to the old man first? And to the woman second? And then where did it go third? The hands. And then where did it go? It continued to circle around the image, didn't it? So I don't know how many people know Ben Shirk. Super award-winning photographer, artist. He's absolutely insanely, amazingly brilliant. This is one of his images. And he actually was kind enough, not for me, but for the world, to create a there we go. To create a short video on how he created this image. So he shoots this in his studio all on green screen. It's not for me, it's Ben.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, right. Everybody can do that, right? So I took a class with Ben, and he's just off the hook, amazing. Yeah, so that one has that image has always just been fantastic to me. But you can see how you said your eye went to the old man first. So brightest thing in the frame, right? The next brightest thing is the lady, and then all the leading lines pointing to both of them, mostly to her, right? Just totally guide your eye, and then the whole Fibonacci sequence, how nothing's centered, the center is totally cleared out, moves your eye to either end of the image. It's a fantastic image. So I know it's nothing that I could create, but I just kind of wanted to give you guys an idea of the concept behind, really great images aren't just, walking outside and clicking a picture with your camera. It's doing something intentional, thinking about what you want to create, and then using your camera and the post-processing as a tool to be able to do that. That's it. Any questions? Leslie?
When you went to see him,
Yes.
did you tell him how long that took?
No. But I know that he's done. So if you go on YouTube and you just put in Ben Shirk, there's others that he's done this to as well. He actually was. He's such an amazing artist. He was getting frustrated that he never entered the wedding competitions, because there's some guys in PPA that always win these beautiful wedding images. And so he actually did a similar process to this and created this beautiful wedding image with this spiral staircase. Totally just created it from scratch with little bits and pieces like he did this. And I think that took him months to do. So yeah, I mean, this isn't. I mean, you saw all the. I mean, that's a long time. So yeah. Yes, ma'am.
So I guess you would call this digital art.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Does PPA have categories?
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. I think it's digital arts. Yeah. 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 Any other questions? So I will offer myself as a reference if you guys have a few images that you need critiqued. I know Bill's doing a class for you guys and stuff, but if you need some help, Liz knows how to get in touch with me, and just feel free to look me up, and I'll be glad to help if you want some feedback on any of your images.
That was really nice. Wonderful critiques. Does anybody else have any questions? No? Okay. Are you going to join us tonight?
Yes, I would. Thank you.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Then that's really all we have. Is everything going well?
I've been known to run off with these things.
Is that good? So nothing here is prepared. I just want to tell you about last month's meeting. Was everybody here for the most part? And Patrick gave a presentation on the animation that you can put to still photographs. I thought a lot about that, and when I went home, I would drag out a few images and try and find those sources for animation and see if I can bring them back to life. And I was fairly successful. So then I went one step further, and I took some old images of World War II, World War I soldiers who are no longer with us. These were positives that I put into my scanner and then restored, and then put your animation on it and sent it to the VA. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock, I will be on the radio for a broadcast to talk about what you inspired me all about. The VA, the Veterans Administration, is very interested in having a discussion. That will be a side thing, but the promo bit about it will be tomorrow's radio broadcast. I think there's something here of going out and reaching your dad, your mom, some veteran who's no longer with us, that I can restore, clean up, and give them 5 to 9 seconds of motion. The VA loves it. Let's see where it goes. That's all. I just want to say thank you to you. That's all it was. I just want to say thank you.
Can you share you said tomorrow you're doing this?
I'm doing it tomorrow at 1.
Okay, so it won't be live or anything?
No. WNZ something? Anyway, it's specific to the VA.
Is it available on the web?
I'm sorry?
Can it be listened to on the web?
Live
I
or-
don't know the answer.
A lot of stations are streaming live now.
Yeah, I will find out. But, you know, if I'm,
One of us, and we'll send it out.
yeah, let me see what that's all about.
Yeah, you can actually post too, but like if you get a link, but we definitely would love to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.